Alrighty, Mr. S6, how am I gonna get you back together? At this point, you sure don't look like the finished product. And to make matters worse, it's not like I took it apart, nor is it a popular enough project for there to be information on how to get from where I am to where I need to be. It's like I'm looking for clues, trying to fix a puzzle with no instructions. There's gotta be something I can do though. It's not like I haven't put a car back together before, but it's a much different perspective when it's an engine I've never seen, and one that seems to be lacking information. These diagrams aren't it, and the pictures that are of a puzzle that's already been completed. Maybe the internet won't be my biggest ally in this case. I've still got the old service book after all, and while most of the book's about the 2.7, it seems like there might be a couple gems hidden in here after all. Cylinder head cover, huh? Not exactly the information I need, but maybe a step in the right direction. That's the first real diagram of the engine I've found, and while I'm not worried about my ability to put back on a valve cover, maybe I should look for more diagrams like this. They might not tell me how to put everything back together, but maybe I can use them as clues, use the pictures as part of a roadmap. Maybe with enough of these diagrams and some trial and error, I'll be able to figure out my own way forward. I guess only time will tell. The valve covers aren't much of a lead, but I will say it is a place to start, and I'm really hoping that this is one of those situations where stepping into the rabbit hole teaches me quite a bit more about it. A project always goes back together easier when you're the one who took it apart. You notice things, how things fit, what else needs replaced. And since I didn't do that, I don't have any of those benefits. I haven't the faintest idea yet how this all goes back together. All I really know is what's shared with other cars. Stuff like the valve covers. Might as well make some progress rather than staring at something I know nothing about. Not to mention, the valve covers turned out fantastic compared to everything else on the engine. Actually, maybe before I even do valve covers, I should take time to clean the engine. It's clearly been leaking from multiple places for years. And while I guess I could just toss the valve cover on as is, I would definitely be doing a disservice to the work I put into it. Ha! This far in and I'm already finding another detour. At least I'll get the chance to test out a tool I'm borrowing from a friend. A steam cleaner. I've heard about these, but I've never used one. So when a buddy of mine told me I could try it out on the S6, no wasn't something I ever considered saying. Even if it only does a little bit, it'll be a lot better than it is. Even the steam cleaner's gonna struggle getting rid of these huge clumps of stuff though. So some good old-fashioned elbow grease at this point seems inevitable. I'm not expecting this car to turn out perfect. It's not gonna be a showroom quality engine bay or anything of the sort. But what it will be, and what I care about it being, is cleaner than it was. And right now, it's absolutely terrible. The trifecta of the steam cleaner, manual effort, and degreaser sure worked wonders. Not perfect, but the valve cover should at least seal now, which is a big step in the right direction. Though they're not going to seal without the actual gaskets. And in the case of these valve covers, it's more than just the one on the bottom. This is a kit by L-Ring which contains all of the gaskets I'll need to truly seal these valve covers again. But it's not going to fit with the tape on the valve covers from when we painted them. So before these go on, there's even more prep to do. The simplest and the largest of these gaskets is one that is shared by almost all valve covers. It goes around the perimeter of the entire bottom, and the only real difference from other ones is this gasket holds in the valve cover hardware itself, which is as simple as popping it in. The next gaskets go around the holes where the spark plugs go into the engine, and their main purpose is to help seal the coils. These ones, however, fit a little bit snug, so they require a bit of persuasion. After that, the only two gaskets remaining are in the middle. All they are is small ring gaskets which also help hold in some hardware for the valve cover. And with that in place, I could do the exact same thing for the valve cover for the other bank. And even though this is simple progress, it is progress nonetheless, and moving forward sure does feel a lot better than standing still. According to the book and my history with most valve cover installs, I've got to use some RTV on all the places where metal meets with metal. And in this engine's case, it looks like each bank has 6 specific spots you need to put it. But after it's on and the mess was made, it was time to send the valve cover back home, which was a very familiar process to all the other valve covers I've ever worked on. Thread in all the hardware gently, and then torque it down in a star pattern starting in the middle. In this case, provided to me by none other than the service book. Glad it's finally making itself useful. Following this side's valve cover replacement, it really only made sense to do the same thing on the other side, and there was no real difference other than it was just a bit harder to get into place. I still have no idea how to get this engine back together. It makes sense where the valve covers go, and that's not a mystery. The cooling system, the vacuum lines, and the intake manifold, though, are. They're new to me. and I still don't really have a lead on where to start with them. I'm still holding out hope that as I continue what I do know, some deus ex machina will happen that'll teach me all I need to know. Until then, I'm just going to keep putting in the puzzle pieces that I do understand, following up the valve covers with another component from the ignition system. I know how this works on other cars, so I don't know why it would be any different here. Time for spark plugs and coils. And the coolest thing about the ones that this V8 uses is they're ones without an adjustable gap, so it really is just a direct replacement, so long as we don't find that one of the original ones has broken off into the cylinder. Thankfully, other than being a bit old, so far the original spark plugs look totally fine, which is a good sign. And it's also another thing that I can do without needing to know how to get the car fully back together. It's a single step that both makes sense alone and is part of the bigger picture of getting the car back together. Known progress, in other words. I still don't really feel like I'm on the right track though. Sure, this is progress, but it feels too safe. Plus, it's not like I really know that the engine doesn't have any other issues. Something the previous owner noticed that made him stop in his tracks, not put the car back together. That's probably my biggest fear right now. And I think the scariest part about it is the fact that I can't possibly ever know what the previous owner saw and what he noticed that made him want to stop. And at least to me, the unknown is always scarier than the known. Maybe all this work is for nothing. Maybe once the engine is back together is when I'll finally figure out why he decided to sell it. Or maybe it'll all be fine. Not being able to know is the hard part. Letting my mind wander and think is the hard part. Finishing the ignition system is the easy part. Even if, for some odd reason, the engineers who built the car decided to make the coils asymmetrical side to side. And maybe it's just a scapegoat for my other worries, but it sure looks goofy to have 1 out of 8 coils facing the opposite direction. Oh well. I'm rapidly approaching the limit of what I understand here. Coils, plugs, valve covers, I've done those before. And it doesn't really matter what engine you're doing them on, it's all basically the same. This is where I step off the deep end, I guess. Coolant lines, wiring harness, vacuum lines, intake manifold, they've all got to find their way back to where they were. And it seems like at this point I'll have to use clues rather than existing instructions to know where those places are. Diagrams are a fantastic reference, but they don't really tell me what to put back first, and it sure does look different when everything's back together. It is doable, but it's also hard to say how quickly I'll figure it out, and it might be impossible to know if I miss anything. Just start with what you know. I've got a handful of pieces, interconnected in various ways, but some of them make more sense than others, and some of them might make even more sense after they've been partially figured out. The wiring harness seems like it has a million connections, wires going every which way, but if I ignore most of them and just focus on things that do make sense, maybe that'll lead me to figuring out more. The harness connects to the coils. That makes sense. And the way that the harness is shaped, this plug can only go to this sensor. Maybe that's how the whole car can go back together. Not by focusing on everything at once, but by zoning in on one thing at a time, looking at its resting memory from being in the same place for 20 years, and figuring out where it used to be. This side's a bit different. 3 plugs, and for now, 1 sensor. I don't know where 2 of them go yet, but right now, I don't need to. Only one of them can go here because only one of them has 3 prongs. That's all I can do for the wiring harness right now. I'm guessing the other sensors are on the intake manifold itself, but maybe I should learn about the vacuum lines underneath first. Plus, I think they should probably be replaced. Scratch that. Definitely be replaced. And maybe I don't need to understand the whole vacuum system to replace lines in it. If I replace them 1 line at a time, I don't need to know what they do yet. I can treat it like a black box, make it the same length, and connect it in the same places. Then it'll do the same thing without me being any the wiser. And the understanding? Well, I have faith that'll come in time. Once I build out the rest of the system, build up that understanding 1 piece at a time. I just gotta figure out where they start and where they end. The rest I can leave up to time. For now though, all these old vacuum lines need to be replaced. I have absolutely no idea if they are leaking, but on my other cars that use the same lines, I've never once had one of these lines not leak. The fabric-coated ones specifically. While that fabric helps prevent heat, it also traps it in the line. So I've honestly found that these ones wear a lot faster than the standard rubber ones on the rest of the engine. At least on my 2.7 and 1.8, that was the case. I have no idea what's going on top of these after this, but what I do know is this is probably the easiest they're going to be to access. So if they are going to get replaced, now is probably the best time to do it. I replaced all the vacuum lines I could see with the understanding that I would likely be doing more of that in the future, as I find them. After looking at the engine, at this point I realized the only thing I really could do next was start the preparation for the intake manifold going on. All of the remaining connections go around it. Wires, vacuum lines, everything connects to it now. So it really is the only thing that makes sense. And to make matters just a bit more fun, I see no reason why we shouldn't modify the car while it's already this far apart. Some things are a lot easier done in the present than waiting for the future. And this mod is no real exception. These are JHM intake manifold spacers, and according to a bunch of the old forums for this car, these actually make a pretty decent difference on this naturally aspirated car. Better power, cooling, and torque sounds like a win to me, and given where they sit, having to take everything back off later really makes no sense. Should be as simple as cleaning the surface and putting these on before the manifold. Wait, am I crazy, or is that undone? Actually, what even is that? I sure don't remember touching it. Definitely undone. Weird. Why would the previous owner have undone something like that? And why wouldn't he have put it back together? And this isn't even the only screw that's loose. It looks like this whole thing would just come right up. Oh. Well, that would explain why he didn't put it back on. There's a gasket underneath, and from the looks of it, it's been leaking for a very long time. Right now, all I wish is that I noticed this sooner. It's one of those things that would be found while taking the car apart, cataloged in your memory so you could order the part for when you put it back together. But I didn't get to do that. Instead, I found it as I was about to cover it up. And now, I'm not sure what to do. It's clearly leaking, but who knows when it would get here if I ordered it. No matter when that is, it's going to prevent any progress. This seems like another one of life's unexpected events. Nah, scratch that. Maybe life is nothing more than a series of unexpected events. Delays, things outside of a plan. Life doesn't have instructions and neither does this project. All there is what you learn from what's around you. Evidence, clues, and what you make from them. Pay attention to everything at once or one thing by itself. Make a bad decision or a good decision. And right now I've never been more tempted to do something rash. RTV would fix all our issues, but it's not the right answer, especially since the gasket does exist. I'm just too weak to wait. I know what I want to do, and I know what I should do. Sadly, I don't know if they're the same right now. What I do know is I'd probably regret impulsively doing this wrong. I guess at least I'll have more time to learn. One step at a time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. That's the best way you can help support me and my content. Either way, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.